In this section for my growth goal areas, I recorded 2 videos in there. One is of the students completing their warm-up question, and one is of some whole class instruction. So first with the warm-up video, that we do a warm-up every day, but I would say, when did we start this? Like February probably. What I do is I print off a full EOG. So the EOG is the end of grade test that they take, and they take one in math and ELA in 6th grade in North Carolina. And I print off an old EOG, and it's a real one. And I do it on some colored paper to make it a little bit more exciting. And what they do is they'll do one question from the packet each day, and by the end of the school year, before they take their EOGs, they should be done with it. And with days off and holidays and teacher work days or other things that we have to do, sometimes we'll have to skip a day. So it winds up working out where it normally finishes right before the EOG, and then we get to the questions that I had previously taught. But I'll hand out stickers. I just recently bought some new fun stickers for them, and they are loving it. And if they get the question correct, they get to put a sticker. And if they get it incorrect, they do not. So at the end of the entire of them completing the packet, they get to, I will grade it. And I told them that if they get a 5, so the EOG is scored on a 1 through 5 scale. If they earn a 5 on this practice EOG, that they get to pick whatever breakfast they want, and I will buy it for them and bring it to school. So they talk about that all the time. And they are always like, oh, I have 2 wrong. And they always ask me how many they can get wrong to still earn a 5. But it's a really good incentive to get them to want to do well on this, because sometimes they just don't really care how they're doing on it. So to see them really focus and quiet and wanting to do this, and the rule is they can't talk to anyone. It's when the timer is on, they're focused on that question. We could talk after. I also added a little drum roll piece to get some excitement for what the answer is. So sometimes they'll cheer if they get it right. Sometimes they will be a little upset if it's not right. But it's really fun, and they enjoy it. And this is the best way that I've given a practice EOG before. So it also allows them time and not stress. Like if I told them I was giving them a practice EOG to take today and they had to do all 45 questions, they would probably freak out. So allowing them to do one question at a time and chunking that content has really worked well. And with the stickers, they also know the rules that if they're putting the stickers on the desk, or taking more than one, or putting a sticker if they got it wrong, or putting it on their binders, whatever it may be, we can't be doing that, because if we do that, then the stickers get taken away and we just have to put a check mark, and that's boring. Also, at the end of every week, if there's no stickers on my desk, or there's not a million stickers somehow missing, or if I don't see any abuse of the stickers, they each get to keep one extra sticker for themselves, whether they got the question right or wrong, and they can put it on their binder, or on their hand, or wherever they want. So that's also been an incentive to get them to really treat my supplies correctly and my classroom correctly. These warm-up questions also help them review and reflect on old things that we've learned. So these questions have to do with our first topic or our first unit in the school year. And some of them, in the beginning, it was a little rough, because they're like, what? We haven't talked about this in months. I'm like, I know, we got to start getting into it and reviewing about it. And this will be on your test at the end of the year. So we need to see it and make sure that we don't forget everything that we've learned throughout the year. Using the timer also allows them time to process their thinking and their learning. And if they're taking too long, they can look up and be like, oh, I got to hurry up a little bit. And then also, if they answer a question, I always tell them, if you answer a question within 2 seconds, 30 seconds, it's probably not right. I want you to use all the time and go back and check it over. I always say to them, I can't even answer this question in a minute. So should you guys be able to if I'm the teacher? Probably not. Just to make sure that they're using that time wisely and really thinking about how they're going to answer the question and to try to get it correct. All of this also ties into celebrating their success. When they get the questions correct, the sticker, the breakfast, me just saying great job. If everyone in the class or the majority of the class has it correct, I'll tell them that. I'll say, listen, y'all did this the best out of every class all day. Or almost everyone in the class got it right, or everyone in the class did get it correct. You all should be proud of yourself and pat yourself on the back and just remember all of the content that you do know, and it also helps boost their confidence. In the second video was my whole class instruction, and we were learning about adding and subtracting integers. I started off by previewing, we previewed what we had talked about the day before with integers and what integers are and what opposites are in the additive inverse. And I don't think this was captured in the video, but we had recently learned about the multiplicative inverse. So comparing those and seeing how they're similar and how they're different, the multiplicative and additive inverse, and just reviewing and reflecting on what we had previously learned, just to kind of give them a refresher, a reminder, and what we're going to do in a lesson. So I tossed the ball, and the rule with the ball is it only gets thrown back to me. They know if I toss them the ball, they cannot throw it to any other student in the class unless I give permission. Every once in a while, I'll say, hey, you can pick someone to toss it to. But for the most part, they have to just toss it back to me. So that I've noticed has gotten so much more participation. They love to just, anything hands-on, they love doing. And just being able to throw a ball, something as simple as that, they get so excited about, and they want to participate more. But again, identifying those rules and procedures at the beginning of me starting something, at the beginning of the school year, me starting this ball throwing activity is so important, because if I didn't, they probably would not be doing as well with it as they are. But I have to say, honestly, all those little silly rules that I have put into place, or silly games that I do, the students have really caught on well. They listen to the rules, they follow the rules, and they love it. So I'm really proud of them for being able to continue doing that. And then throughout this lesson, you can kind of see some more engagement strategies. For instance, when I tell them if there's a negative and a minus sign next to each other, I kind of gave a little bit of the story to a student that was out the day before, but I had totally explained the story the day before. Basically, in the past, a student had said that the minus and the minus with the parentheses and the negative next to it looked like a face, and I tell them to turn that into a plus sign right away, and the plus sign looked like a T. So this face we called Tony. And I've used that for the past 3 years now, and that is one thing that the kids are quite obsessed with. We've created Tony, and then we've created phony, because the phony is when it's a plus sign and then parentheses and a negative. So over the years, it's kind of grown, and they love it. Like, they're like, oh, I see a Tony, before I even ask them anything about the question. So that's one thing that has gotten them to enjoy math. And then also, I had learned a song when I grew up that my math teacher had taught me, and somehow all these years later it has stuck with me, and I showed my students a song. I was like kind of embarrassed and like nervous to sing it for some reason, and I feel like I'm a very silly teacher, in person in general, but especially when I bring it into teaching, I try to make math fun and silly in as many ways as I can. So I'm not really sure why I was so nervous, but I had a little song to try to get them more engaged and try to have them remember things, and they enjoyed that as well. And throughout this whole class instruction video, you can also see that I am focusing on critical information, and I'm highlighting important things that they need to know and they need to remember. And then also just using practice or structured practice sessions. So practicing with me helping them go through some problems, them trying some on their own, and then eventually I allowed them to work with partners to talk problems through. So I feel like overall I did a pretty good job at motivating them. I think the one thing in these videos was kind of just maybe maintaining a better pace, because I feel like I kind of went a little bit slow and maybe lost a little bit of attention from some students at some times. So I think I'm normally relatively good at keeping them engaged and keeping them in a steady pace, and myself at a steady pace, but I feel like there were points where I look back and I'm like, oh, they knew what they were doing. They did not need me in that moment. I could have sent them on their way and they could have completed more practice questions. But in that moment, I just wanted to make sure that they knew, and I wanted to start the day off with reviewing things from yesterday. But I think I need to start looking at each class differently, and if one class needs me to do more problems with them, if they might need a little bit more help, then so be it. If another class doesn't, I don't need to do the same thing. I don't need to do the same exact amount of problems. I can change it up. So that's one thing that I would like to work on. I think it was kind of a weakness in the video. Just, you could tell they knew what they were doing, and I feel like we went a little bit slow. But I think that I have built such great relationships with my students, and you can see it in that video, and you can see the silliness and that the kids enjoy being in my classroom.